Okay, welcome guys. We'll go ahead and get started because it's a couple minutes after 12. Folks may still be trying to download the Collaborate application, but we'll go ahead and get started because we're going to wrap up by 1 o'clock. Hi, my name is Vicki Dominic, and I am the Associate Director for Learning Services. And for some reason, there we go. My slides weren't forwarding, but I got them to go. This workshop is a collaboration between Learning Services and Graduate Student Life, and Julie Chilkin is the director. You can see information about the other workshops and the other events. Kate Shaw is her graduate assistant, and she'll be moderating the chat today as well. So thank you so much for joining us. The topic today is time management. So if you could just type in the chat what your time management challenges are. Just go ahead and give me a couple of points about what things you're having trouble with your time management. So Joe said waiting till the last minute to do things. If it's all prioritizing. Lisa, I do my best work at the last minute, even though good work is. I do my work at the last minute, even though good work is produced. Like ready, I'm writing my thesis as well as teaching 2 classes and taking a class. So juggling all those responsibilities is a big challenge. Okay, great. Well, that just gives me an idea of the things that you guys are looking for some assistance with. The agenda for today, we're going to talk about the different levels of time management. For graduate students, there's at least 4. For undergrads, if there's any undergrads joining us today, there's 3 main ones that you should be looking at. We're going to do a time estimate exercise. We'll create a plan for the upcoming week, and then we'll talk about some strategies for following the plan that you created. I'm looking over at Kate's computer to see if she can see me. So, yes. Yeah, I can see you. All right. So, if you're a grad student, you should be thinking really big picture. We're talking 2 years in advance. Okay, so undergrads, don't freak out. I'm not talking about you. Just for the graduate students, you should be planning really long term. And that means that you should get a yearly calendar where, just like I have in the picture here, with the different months, and you should put in some of your long-term deadlines. Long-term deadlines in graduate school could be, you know, applying for grants or applying for conferences, whatever the timeline is for qualifying exams and for submitting proposals. There's certain deadlines that you have to meet for your graduate school that are really long-term. So you want to plan this stuff out 2 years in advance, which sounds like a really long time, but in the greater scheme of things really isn't that long. So that's the big picture. For everyone, graduate students and undergraduate students, we recommend that you create a semester calendar. And with your semester calendar, you want to put all of your large deadlines. So having a monthly calendar, so not just making a list, because you can look at all of your syllabi, but it's really deceiving. You can look at one syllabus and say, oh, I have 3 exams and a paper, or I just have a couple of presentations, and it doesn't look that bad. But when you plot all of your obligations onto a monthly calendar and you see them all in one place, you realize, wow, I'm really busy the week before spring break, or I have all of these other obligations that are going to mean that I don't have time to study, so I need to accommodate that as well. So on the next slide I have, I just wanted to know in the chat, what are you currently using to keep track of your big semester deadlines? So go ahead and type that into the chat box. Okay, so Lisa already does what I recommended. Somebody uses a weekly date book that's like ready. Joe uses his phone. This all uses the phone and computer. Answer uses your computer calendar. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can do this. The main recommendation is that you have one way. Instead of having multiple calendars and multiple places that you have to keep track of and update, it's just better to have one system in place and use that consistently, because otherwise if you update something in one calendar and then not the other one, that's where people tend to get into trouble. So I'm old school, so we tend to use a paper monthly calendar, and I've got an example of just 1 month. Ideally though, you're going to put everything for the whole entire semester onto this calendar. So for this, it's just the big things, not the reading assignments. So there's an essay due. This person has also noted that their friend's wedding is coming up, so that weekend they won't be able to study as much. They've got an exam. They've got a proposal due. And for some of the graduate programs, some people have a proposal writing class and other people don't. So this is something you do on your own. That means you need to set your own deadlines, and that can be really, really challenging because there's not a grade involved. But actually giving yourself deadlines and sharing those deadlines with your advisor and having them help hold you accountable will keep you on track. But we want to have a nice big picture, and let's see if I can send you guys in case you need it. I'll send you a spring calendar. Oh. So it should be sending your way. There's nothing that you need to do with this. I just wanted to send it to you as a resource. Okay, and if you have any questions as I'm going along, please feel free to put that in the chat box, and we'll respond as best we can. All right. Now, before we get into the next level of time management, we're going to do an exercise called How Do You Spend Your Time? This is going to help you estimate how much time you're spending in different activities. All right, so this should be coming to you right now. All right, so go ahead and open up this document, and on it you'll see a list of different activities that you may be involved in any given week. What I want you to do is estimate how much time each activity takes you approximately. Make sure that you don't double up. So if you listen to music while doing laundry, you're going to count that in one category or the other, but don't put them together. So if you tend to multitask, which I know nobody does because you're not supposed to, but if you do multitask, make sure you're only counting something in one category or the other. When you finish filling out the page 1, go ahead and raise your hand. And if you look on your screen, right above the list of names, you should see a smiley face, like a little face with a clock, and then a hand. So when you finish, go ahead and click the hand so that I know about how many people are finished with that. Okay, I'm sending that document out again. So you may receive it twice. It takes a few minutes to download. That could be why. All right, a couple of people said that they have not gotten it. My download shows that it's complete. Let me see if I can send it to you in a different way. Check your email in just a second. Okay, so just estimate your time for the week, and when you're finished, go ahead and click the raise hand feature. Okay, so as you're filling this out, if you find that you're over, don't stress about it. We're going to talk about that in just a second. This is just a guesstimate. And go ahead and bust out those calculators if you need to. This isn't math, so I don't want to trigger any math anxiety. So add up your total, and then you're going to subtract it from 168 hours, which is how many hours there are in a week. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. All right, so let's do a little poll. How much time after you did your estimate of how much time you spend in each of those activities do you have left available for research and for studying? So, it would help if I turned on the poll. And I don't have the right poll thing up. Hang on. All right, so you can put in the chat, unless I can figure out how to change my poll here. Because right now I only have yes and no. Here we go. So next to the hand at the top, you'll see a little letter A. So you can respond A for 1 hour to 10 hours, B for 11 to 20, C that you have more than 21 hours left, or D you have 0 or less. Okay, so you can click the poll at the top. There's a smiley face, a little face with a clock, a hand, and then there's a letter A. Click on it, there's a little drop down. So it's A, B, C, D, or 1, or A, B, C, or D, or you can put it in the chat. Okay, so we got a couple people who have negative hours, a couple people who have pretty good amount of time, 11 to 20, and most people have more than 21 hours available. Did anything surprise folks about this? Were you surprised by how little time you had or how much time you had? So it's problematic if you have too little time, because what we put in there are your regular obligations. There's really, if you look at the list, there's no time to study or do research. So if you have 0 time left, you really have to go back through and see what you can cut back on. And I don't want you to cut back on sleep. That's like the last thing that I want you to reduce. Ideally, if you're spending way more time computing or on social media, that might be a good place to cut time. If you're spending a lot of time where you're just not being very planful and chores are taking longer, maybe you can be more efficient with your chores. If you're spending too much time on Netflix, which is evil because you watch a video and then the next video plays and it just keeps going, put some parameters around that, but see what you can cut back on. Sometimes we unfortunately have to cut back on work, or we have to think about going to part-time status, because you don't want to be taking a full load of classes and trying to work a full-time job. The university actually has a policy that recommends that you don't do that, and they're not going to give you special considerations if you have trouble balancing those two, because they know full-time means you're spending the majority of your time on that particular activity. So think about what things that you can cut back on. If you have too much time, that can be a problem too, because it's really easy to procrastinate. It feels like I have all the time in the world and I don't really need to plan because I can do that tomorrow. It may help you to either add a campus job or to volunteer or join a student organization, something to give a little bit of structure to your time so that you're not wasting tons of time. And I know that sounds contradictory, but seriously, if you have way too much free time that's not structured, it can be really difficult to get your tasks completed. All right, so for our next level of time management, we talked about 2-year schedule, semester schedule. Let's talk about weekly. So ideally, we want to do what's called putting your big rocks in first. So if something is really important to you, you want to put those activities into your weekly schedule before you put anything else in. There's 2 pictures of a jar here on the screen, and the one on the left, you can see there's big rocks on the top, there's pebbles, and then there's sand. So the jar represents all the time you have in the week, 168 hours. The pebbles are the urgent tasks that come up that you have to deal with. The sand are all the little things like sending emails and hanging out and chatting and checking scores on the internet that just take a few minutes, but that stuff adds up over time. And then your big rocks are things like research time, study time, all of your goals. If you're not planful, your jar will get full really quickly and there's no room for your goals. But if you put your goals in first and you plan around those, there's still room for all the urgent things, and there's still room for all those little tasks that add up over time. But we want to put your big rocks in first so that you're planful and you're on track. All right, so this is an example for a graduate student of a possible weekly time budget sheet that they can put together. And so if this person works, they work Monday through Friday. They have dinner every Sunday with their family. That's So when we're talking about goals, we're not just talking about your academic goals, but other goals as well. So if relationships are important to you, you put time for that on your schedule. So this person has dinner with their family every Sunday. They've got their classes on here as well, and then they're working on their proposal, and it's not part of a class. So they've set aside 2 hours every day, Sunday through Saturday, to work on their proposal. You want to have specific time set aside because, like I said, other things will just eat into this and it will just disappear before you know it. So I'm going to send you a weekly time budget sheet. This is, again, a resource for you. It's not anything that you need to do anything with right now. Just wanted to send this as a resource. But you can certainly do this on your Google Calendar. You can do it on your phone calendar. You can do it in a paper planner. A lot of them have a weekly schedule at the beginning that you can fill out. Put something together. We don't want you to plan every minute of every day, because if you do that and one thing gets thrown off, then the whole plan falls apart. Really just want to have like a skeleton of a schedule together. Now if there's a class that you procrastinate on a lot, I do recommend actually adding specific time in your schedule when you're at your best. So we tend to put off the classes we don't like till the last minute or till the end of the day when we're really tired. And so if you're going to class, you know, on a Tuesday night and you get home after 10 o'clock and then you think you're going to work on your assignment for EDRS 590 the next day, it's probably not going to happen. So be realistic about that and maybe schedule some time to get ahead of the game and be working on those assignments on Friday, maybe in the morning before you work on your proposal, and then you have time on Saturday and Sunday as well to get that homework done. So you're not doing that, you're not trying to do that homework at 11 o'clock at night when you're just tuckered out and you want to go ahead and get some rest and get some sleep. All right, so I do recommend putting a skeleton together. Some folks find it helpful to schedule time for all of their classes. If you do, that's great. But what we found that's really helpful is to instead make a daily task list. This is because different classes have different important things at different times. And so sometimes you have a week where you have a lot of work for one class but not so much work for another. You don't want to let that class fall to the side, because that can happen. You know, you're taking statistics and I'm bad at statistics, so I'm going to put all of my time into that, and then I forget about my communications class or my proposal writing class or some other class I think is easy. We don't want that to happen. You need to have time for all of your classes, but there's definitely ebb and flow. So to help with that, some students don't like to put the specific times on their weekly schedule, so instead we make a daily task list. What you do with this is you say, okay, this week, here's what I want to accomplish. I want to start to prepare for my exam. I want to work on that paper that I have due. I need to work on the speech that I have for another class. And then once you've got your goals set, these are really broad, big goals. You want to determine what are the 2 to 3 most important study activities to complete for each day. And you plan a whole entire week. Now the trick is, it needs to be super specific. So it should never just say study. It should never say like study math. We need you to say exactly what you're going to do to study math. So to study math, I'm going to do problems 1 through 10 of chapter 5 in my math textbook. It needs to be really specific. So not work on my proposal, I'm going to make my final edits to my proposal. Or I'm going to write 3 pages for my proposal. The more that you can quantify it so you can measure it, the better off you're going to be. So here's an example, and I'm going to push this document to you. Hopefully it will come through. All right. So I'm sending you a copy of this document. Again, you can do this in a daily planner. You can do this on Google Calendar. You don't need to use this form. It just makes a nice visual to show you guys what I'm talking about. So for this person, this was for a week in October. Their goals were to prepare for an exam, finish their proposal presentation, and start on a group project. Then on Monday, they still have things to do for other classes, and it's actually color-coded to which class it correlates with. But they've said they're going to create flashcards for Chapter 9, they're going to make final edits to the proposal, and then they're going to read Chapter 5 for a different class. So 2 to 3 tasks for each day, and you plan the entire week. So this will get you thinking more long-term instead of just what's due tomorrow. That's when things sneak up on you. Nothing should ever sneak up on you. If you follow these different levels of time management, you should know what's coming up. You should be able to break it down into small pieces, and you should have time available in your schedule to get it done. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be mistakes, but at least you're planning ahead as best you can. So if you have that daily preparation schedule document that I sent to you, take a look at it, and you can either use that form or maybe on a piece of scrap paper or in your planner if you have it, or your electronic planner. Go ahead and think about what your goals are going to be for this week and come up with 2 or 3 specific activities to work on over the next couple days. We won't have time during this presentation to fill out the whole week, but we can at least get you started. So I'll give you a minute to do that. I'll give you one more minute, and then we'll continue. Okay, so like I said, you probably did not have time to plan an entire week right this second during our webinar, but I just wanted to give you this tool so that you would know that you can use it, and this is one way to plan out your week. Now, I know this is similar to a to-do list, but the challenge with the to-do list is we write out our items, right? We've got 20, 25 items on the list. Maybe you get 2 or 3 things done, and then you're like, man, I really stink. I only got a couple things done. But if you prioritize correctly and you get a couple things done, you're actually in pretty good shape. Plus, we tend to have the things that we hope to get done, but we really we feel like we should do those. Maybe they're not really supporting our goals. So we have these things that are on our list that we never really get to. This makes sure that you're super focused on your actual goals and that you're putting tasks on here that are going to help you get to the things that you want to accomplish in a week, like preparing for exams, working on your proposal. And this breaks it down so that you're not trying to do everything in one. So on here I color-coded this in blue, everything to do with their proposal, making their edits, sending in their final review, their revised proposal, working on their PowerPoint, working on their talking points, actually rehearsing. These are separate tasks. But in our mind, if we're like, just finish our proposal presentation, and you put that on a to-do list, that can be overwhelming. So anytime you feel overwhelmed, take that activity and break it down into smaller pieces. What's the next thing I can do for that? What's the one thing I can accomplish? And make it small, make it manageable, and spread it out over time. Don't ever feel like you need to write a 20-page paper in one sitting. You might be able to do it, but you're going to stress yourself out and you may not produce your best work even if you get a good grade on it. Okay, so that's why we recommended the daily preparation schedule instead of a to-do list. All right, so you've got your 2-year plan, you've got your semester calendar, you've got your weekly routine put together, and you've got your daily preparation. How are you going to actually follow this plan? I think a lot of folks do pretty well at putting a plan together, but they maybe were unrealistic, they were too broad, they were too general, and so hopefully the tips that I've given you will help you break it down and make it even more specific. But it can still be really challenging to follow the plan that you put into place. If you live at home, or you are married, or you have children, this can be really, really tough, because it's not just you that you need to worry about, it's what your family needs from you as well. And so maybe it's a time to sit down and enlist some help from your family members. If you're responsible for most of the household chores, maybe it's talking to the people that you live with and asking them for assistance. So maybe they can help you fold the laundry, or maybe it's being realistic and maybe I can't vacuum every single day, but it's okay to vacuum every other day because getting my graduate work done is really important to me. I might not be able to have as pristine and perfect a house as I like, or maybe I'm going to have the kids take care of some of this stuff, and they're not going to clean it as well as I will, but it's okay, it's still going to get done. The other thing you can do is to partner with other graduate students or other non-traditional students who also have children and see if you can trade off child care responsibilities. So maybe one person takes the kids on Monday nights so that you have time to study, and then you watch your kids and their kids on Tuesdays so they have a nice block of time to study. So partner up with other people, ask people for help. I know we don't want to ask for help usually. We want to think we can do it all, and we've been kind of told that you can do everything. Realistically, we need assistance. Another thing is that we have to learn to be able to delay gratification. I know for me, when I was working on my master's thesis, my house was never so clean because it was really satisfying to do household chores because it was small, it was finite, I could get it done, and I felt like I was accomplishing something. And I didn't always feel that way with my proposal. So I just sometimes needed to sit with it and work on it, even though it was uncomfortable. And I needed to sometimes go other places rather than be at home because it was too easy to be like, oh, the dog needs to go for a walk, and that's much more fun than, you know, writing up my results section. Or it's too tempting to go online and check things online. So one of the ways I did that was to go and do my work at like a coffee shop that had internet access, but not unlimited. It was like throttled, so they kick you off after a certain amount of time. So I wasn't online surfing the web and wasting time. So go find a place that you get in the mindset, I'm here to do work, rather than procrastinate, or the worst place to study and do work is in your room on your bed, because you just end up falling asleep. Procrastination is a learned behavior. The good news about that is that you can learn a different behavior, like getting started on tasks immediately. Once you have your plan in place, give yourself small rewards for actually following your plan. They can be as simple as putting a smiley face sticker on your calendar that you did that stuff for the day, checking off things on your daily to-do list. Some people find that really satisfying. Or maybe it's I make myself my favorite cup of tea at the end of the day as my reward for following my plan and getting everything done. So you can have small rewards as you go along, and then a larger reward. I know after I did my thesis proposal, or my defense, I went out to dinner with my friends to celebrate, and that was something to look forward to because I knew that was coming up, and it was a big scary thing, and it ended up really being actually quite pleasant. All right, have some checkpoints along the way. It can be really lonely in graduate school because for the first time, you're really on your own. It's really up to you to put a plan and to follow it. You're not checking in with your faculty as much, but have some checkpoints to help keep you accountable. Tell your chair or your professor that you need to be able to check in and that they need to help hold you to finishing whatever task you said you were going to do and to not let you off the hook. Sometimes it's nice to have a really nice and easygoing chair, but sometimes you want somebody who's going to kind of kick your butt a little bit and say, hey, you said you were going to get this done. What's going on? What can we do to get you overcoming these, whatever obstacles are in the way of getting this activity done? You can also join a peer writing group. There's a couple of options. One is that Graduate Student Life has a write-in day at the end of each semester, the fall and the spring, and it's a whole day of just, you come in, you set your goals, and you sit and you write for the majority of the day. I would highly recommend joining that, but there's also regular weekly peer writing groups available through the Writing Center. I do believe that they're held in the library. You can also form your own peer writing group. Get together with other people in your department and say, okay, once a week or once every other week, we're going to meet and just talk about how we're coming along on our research. Forming study groups is a great way to have a checkpoint for getting ready for exams, especially qualifying exams or your comprehensive exams. Get together with other people, quiz each other on the material. That way you're not feeling so isolated and alone. Another thing you can do is to submit proposals on your research progress to different conferences. To put in for poster presentations, there's opportunities here at Mason to do that, or to get involved academically, especially if you want to go into academia after you graduate. You do want to get involved in professional organizations and to give presentations. And you can present on just a small piece of your research, and then since there's a deadline, you're more likely to actually follow through and get it done. All right, now be flexible. Like I said, you don't want to put a schedule together that's unrealistic, that's really rigid, because if something happens, you get a flat tire, there's an emergency in your family, there's an opportunity that comes up, maybe a fun opportunity. You want to be able to say yes sometimes. You can't say yes all the time, but you want to have enough flexibility in your schedule that you can accommodate. You can accommodate snow days like we had the last few days. Leave some space and some room for the unexpected. We also recommend doing what's called the Pomodoro timer method. This is where you work in really, really intense short bursts of 25 minutes, and you actually set a timer. And so that's why I've got my little tomato timer. So Pomodoro, I guess, is Italian for tomato. And you set the timer for 25 minutes. You race the clock and get as much done as you can in that 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break. Step away from what you're doing, maybe go to the restroom, maybe have a snack, make a cup of coffee, and then you do it again, another 25 minutes. You do no more than 4 Pomodoros. You don't have to do 4. You could do 1, you could do 2, you could do 3, but don't do more than 4 in a row. If you do 4 in a row, take a longer 1-hour break. All right. The reason for this is that we can only pay attention for a certain amount of time. And if you keep trying to study, you get neural overload and no new information is going in and you're not really being productive any longer. So a break is going to give your brain a rest. It's going to allow your brain to consolidate new memories. And then when you take that longer break, if you're going to rest, be refreshed and be able to get back into it. I know there's times when you get in the flow and you're just in the groove. Don't do the timer method then. If you're in the groove, just go for it. But this is for those, especially those classes that are not your favorite or tough things like working on your research, that it really helps to work in super short bursts and really intensive bursts because we like to have that race the clock. It kicks up your adrenaline and it simulates having a deadline. All right, so I mentioned procrastination earlier. This is one of the biggest things that a lot of folks struggle with. Give yourself your own deadlines and make them fairly challenging. If they're too far out, you're just going to procrastinate up until that deadline. And that's why I'm not a big fan of asking for extensions because then we tend to just procrastinate to the extension. Tell other people what your goals are and help them hold you accountable. If you're really like, I don't want to do this task, I'm avoiding it, try a 5-minute plan. That means that I'm just going to work on this for 5 minutes. That's all I have to do. If after 5 minutes I'm not feeling it, I can go work on something else. Chances are getting started is the hardest part, and once you start, you're going to want to go ahead and continue on. But just agree to yourself, I'm going to just work on it for 5 minutes. The other way you can do this plan is if you can get started, but you give up really fast. It's, well, I'm just going to do 5 more minutes or 5 more problems or 5 more pages so that you don't just give up too easily. Do your least favorite task first. This is super helpful. That way you can do the classes that you really enjoy once you get the least favorite classes or activities out of the way. It's almost like your other classes are a reward for getting that done. And I already talked about rewards earlier. All right, so prioritization, we kind of did that on the daily preparation schedule, but there's this really nice chart that's from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where we think of what we're going to do in terms of if it's important to our goals, or not important, and if the task is urgent, meaning there's a time factor involved and it's due right away, or it's not urgent. If it's urgent and important, this tends to be deadlines and emergencies. This is doing your work at the last minute, just in time. Maybe you're pulling all-nighters. This is a very stressful place to be. One of my clients described this as she runs around and puts out a lot of fires. This is not the best place that you want to be most of the time. You're going to be here sometimes. Ideally, we want to be where things are important, but they're not urgent. That is, you're working on things that are due in the future, that are important to your goals, but are not going to, that you're not like getting it done at the last minute. So you're doing things that are due in a couple of weeks. Things that are urgent and not important, these are interruptions, like our phone, our text message, the Facebook updates. Disable all that stuff because it feels like it's urgent, but it's not important to our goal at the time. It's still going to be on Facebook. That text message is still going to be there. So like unless your significant other is having a baby or something like that, or you have an emergency, a family emergency, turn off your phone, disable your alerts, turn off the email alerts because it's just going to suck up your time. And then we've got not urgent and not important. This is time wasters. TV watching, Netflix. Stephen Covey says you should never be here. I kind of disagree. Sometimes you need time where you can just be relaxed. But if you're here when you're supposed to be here, that's not a good thing. So make sure you prioritize appropriately. And then the last tip that I have for you is to make sure that you create balance. Plan ahead. Give yourself time for not only your academics and your job, but time for fun and to refresh your batteries. Make sure that you have a balance between all these things, academics, work and social life. I know it seems like strange that I'd be recommending this, but if you just do work and just do school, you're going to get burned out and you're not going to be as productive as when you take time for yourself and you take time to take good care of yourself, getting time for exercise and spending time with friends and doing fun activities. We just want to make sure you're not spending all of your time with friends and doing fun activities. It also needs to have work and academics. Okay, so we ran through a lot of information in a pretty short period of time. I sent you some documents. I will make sure that I also send this information to you electronically, so I'll send you a copy of the PowerPoint as well. This presentation has been recorded, and once it renders, I will send it to Kate, and she'll make it available on the Graduate Student Life webpage so you can go back and look at it again, or you can send your friends to it. The really cool thing about the recording is that it's also going to send the documents as well. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you would take a moment to complete the evaluation, and I think I can actually take us to the actual evaluation in the presentation. So, yeah, I took you right to the evaluation. Go ahead and fill that out. And if you have any questions, Kate and I are going to hang out for the next 5 minutes. I hope this information was helpful to you, and have a safe and warm weekend. Okay, so Fiorella, you had a question about preparing a class, how you classify the time. That would be work, and I would recommend that you specifically set aside time to prepare for your class. So you know when your class meets, set aside a couple of hours each day to get it ready in advance for that class, and to do grading as well. So you've got your class prep, the actual presentation in the class, and then your grading that needs to happen. So I would classify that as work. And then Answer asked about a source at the end. Don't recall which source you might be referring to. Oh, so are we talking about creating balance? I will be sending out the whole PowerPoint presentation to you guys, so hopefully you can take a look at that. And Answer, if the source that I referred to is not mentioned in there, just send me an email. Just reply to the email, and then I will send it to you, send whatever the source was. I can't remember what I mentioned because I talked about so many different things. Okay, and then there's a question about a web page that can help you organize your research. Kate, do you know what that might be referring to? A web page? The thing that comes to mind is Zotero. Zotero is an add-on.
I think it was Adherence.
It's an add-on to the Firefox browser. And once you download it, the super cool thing is when you have a source, you just click on the Zotero thing, and it will populate your reference list, or not your reference list, it'll add that to the Zotero database. You can also take notes, and then there's an add-on for Microsoft Word, so when you're actually working on your paper, it will help you populate your reference list, and you can tell it, I want to do MLA style, or APA style, or Chicago style, and it will set it up correctly for you. All right, so that's all the time that we have today. Like I said, I'll send this material to you. If you have any more questions, feel free to send me an email, or you can email Kate Shaw as well. Have a great day.